Welcome to ZekeTalk. My name's Jim Tudor, and we are here tonight to talk about the very much anticipated, very well received Blade Runner 2049. With me tonight is a distinguished panelists of Blade Runner fans and enthusiasts from all over the United States. We have, of course, Mike Anderson.
Hello, yes, regular Michael Anderson, filmmaker, and not a replicant.
Not a replicant. Yes, one of us tonight is a replicant, but we're not going to reveal who for 35 years. Yeah. So we've also got Pamela, and I'm sorry I forgot your last name already. This is unprofessional.
It's Zwaskis.
Zwaskis, that's right. Pamela Zwaskis. I should have written that down, and I didn't. And Pamela is with us in Queens, and then Dean Peteet is with us. Hello, Dean.
Hello. Hello.
There he is. He's with us from Asheville, North Carolina. So we've all seen the film. I've written a review of the film, which is at ZekeFilm.org. Let's get into it. Do you guys feel like you need to be major Blade Runner fans, which at least some of us here are, if not fans, at least admirers? Do you feel like you need to be a big Blade Runner fan to really get this new movie? Let's start with Pamela.
No, you don't need to be a big Blade Runner fan. I think it might be helpful to be a Denis Villeneuve fan. You don't. You would need to see the opening scroll to kind of get the idea of the world you're in, but it tells its own story. And I mean, dare I say, there have been people who are claiming that, the new one is the superior film. And that's going to be probably the crux of a lot of discussion here tonight. I think if you went in blind, you might feel a little lost, but you'd be fine. That's my verdict. A firm no. You don't need to be a big Blade Runner fan to appreciate the new one.
All right. Dean, what do you think of that?
I think that for the head, you don't need to be a Blade Runner fan, or you don't need to have seen the first Blade Runner movie. But I think for the heart, it would be good to have seen it, just because you're melding the two together and they're into like one body. And I think your heart, it's emotionally, the emotional impact, I would think is more so if you've seen the original, but intellectually and cerebrally, not necessarily.
Not necessarily. I see. And somebody, just a side note here, great comment. Somebody's got static going. Can we all hear that?
Dean. Yeah.
It's Dean?
Yeah, I think it's Dean.
Is it me?
Yeah, try detaching. Try going back to your without the earbuds.
Me?
Yeah, maybe just unplug them, or somebody's earbuds aren't liking this.
I pulled mine off first.
Okay. Well, it stopped.
I kept hearing it after I pulled them out.
Okay, we're okay. Let's just carry on then.
Yeah, I was having less distortions and stuff before I put the earbuds on.
Okay.
All right. Well, then we'll just continue on like this. So you were saying that, cerebrally, anybody able to follow, competently follow a story could walk into this new movie and get it.
Yeah.
And I think that's important in the case of a 35-year difference between the original movie and the sequel, where, the makers of the movie have to understand that they're asking people to go, to come in knowing, maybe knowing a little bit about a movie from 35 years ago, and not everybody's going to have seen it.
Yeah. But then again, I mean, in this landscape, the media landscape where Blade Runner has been available, this isn't like Blade Runner has been locked up in a vault for the past 35 years. I mean, this is something that's been that you can reasonably see, whether on streaming or via DVD or Blu-ray. And I think that, although you can certainly understand it, I think that a lot of the thematical resonances will be lost if you haven't seen the first one. I mean, especially, the whole significance of Harrison Ford. It's Deckard. It's Deckard.
And that's kind of what I meant by the heart.
Yeah.
Is you definitely can get an understanding of what's going on, but you really don't get the whole picture, I feel like, unless you've seen the first one on a more of a visceral emotional level.
Yeah. It's not so much as I would say the Twin Peaks: The Return, where if you came into that cold, more power to you, good luck. But this is definitely understandable, and but I think that you'd still be missing a bit of the whole picture. And I think if you see it and you like it, definitely you seek out the first Blade Runner, even though some people call it inferior.
Okay. The director has described the new film as a love letter to the original. And I mean, that even ties in with what you were saying about the heart. You can tell, and what he loves, the imagery, the music, it just, everything is just this very, it's an homage, but it's very respectful of what the original film was.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think, I don't know, how do we feel about this film just in general? Does anybody here feel like Blade Runner 2049 is superior, or do you hate it? Let's get that out of the way. Dean, what do you think? Is this a better movie than the original?
It's kind of like I compare this to some of the bands and music that I like. There are certain bands, and this isn't all their albums, but there are certain bands that I listen to that I really like on a cerebral level. As a musician, I'm really into aspects of certain bands, like Radiohead, for example. I listen to them mostly, not always, on a intellectual, cerebral level.
Sure.
But that's not all their records. Some of their records definitely have more of an emotional resonance for me. But I would say that for me, Blade Runner, the first film, is definitely the more cerebral film. And Blade Runner 2049 is more of the emotive heart aspect. And the two together just really blend and really are like, they complement one another perfectly. The head and the heart. And this is just my experience, my individual interpretation of how the film, how I registered the two films. But like I said, the first film is more of the head and the second film is more of the heart.
Sure. And you're reminding me a lot of Metropolis here, which is perfectly apropos considering the influence of the Fritz Lang film Metropolis, the 1926 science fiction movie, where the building, one of the main buildings from Metropolis, is in Ridley Scott's Blade Runner.
Is that next to the Millennium Falcon, or is it somewhere else?
I'm sorry?
Is that next to the Millennium Falcon, or is it somewhere else in the
I don't know about is the Millennium Falcon in it?
Yeah, R2-D2 is in the side of a building.
Well, no, you guys know what I'm talking about, that iconic building from Metropolis.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, the Metropolis ends with the meeting of the head and the heart.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah.
So is anybody critical of this film, the new one? Or are we all fans?
I did go to see Blade Runner 2049 on opening night, I will admit that at first viewing, I wasn't sure if I was liking it. When I was watching it, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm enjoying myself. It didn't, I think it was a combination of, I wasn't kind of sure what Ryan Gosling was doing with his performance. I disliked the costuming. The story did not go, I think I had some preconceived notions of what the movie was going to be. For spoiler purposes, I'm not going to go too heavy into some of them, but I think I had a preconceived notion, and the movie was not panning out, the plot line was not panning out what I anticipated seeing. I did try to remain spoiler free. I did not try to read any reviews. So everything that happened was a surprise. I've thought about it, and what I want to say is that I keep thinking about it. And I don't know if I felt, I think anger and betrayal is too strong a word, but I wasn't sure if I was enjoying what I was watching. At least I would say maybe the first half. And I like that I keep thinking about it. And I like that some of the things I disliked later on in the film either were nullified or properly addressed, which I don't know. I mean, you don't see a lot. Things are not always as you initially assume them to be.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And Mike, what did you think about it?
Well, I think right now it's too soon for me to judge, in my mind, which one is better or not, because I mean, I went into it spoiler free as well, or as much as I could. All I knew was that it was long, and it was. And but for the most part, I really didn't feel it. My interest was held, and, and a lot of it was, I mean, it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous movie. Roger Deakins cinematography, that's he's pretty much the star of the show here. I enjoyed what I see. Whether or not it'll have, I can see, it's a more emotional film, but it's hard to beat, all these things we lost, like Tears and Rain. That's a tough emotional beat to top, and so I think this is a long movie, and it takes a while to digest, and so I will say that I enjoyed what I saw, and that really, if you're going to have if Hollywood sequel culture is, that they're going to dig up everything, giving Denis the keys to the kingdom and saying, have at it, and to produce something like this, which is, such obviously an art film in spirit, as much as anything else, that if Hollywood can keep doing this, I'm all for it. Give us Weekend at Bernie's 3 if it'll give some French filmmaker a little extra work.
Dune's next.
Yeah, I was about to say, are you looking forward to Dune?
In a way, yes. I think that. Well, Dune is a tough nut to crack. Obviously. I would love to see what he's going to take on that. Even David Lynch, even though I'm not a huge fan.
No, I'm a fan of the David Lynch Dune. I realize that it's not everyone's favorite film, but I really like that. So I'm curious to see what this new version, what's going to happen with the new version.
Yes, I agree. It's been a long time since I've seen the David Lynch Dune. I was not a fan at first, but when I watched it again, I still don't like it as a movie, but I find it a really interesting failure. Which is what I can. it's all I can ask for movies that I don't like. It's like, this really isn't very good, but at the same time, I'm fascinated by it. So,
I have a very soft spot for movies like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's like sometimes there's more for me to sink my teeth into for like some things are great and some things are horrible, and it's all there in the same movie, and
Whereas the sci-fi miniseries of Dune was just a complete train wreck and just awful.
probably
I don't know if any of you have ever seen it.
no.
Yeah, what I enjoy about the original Dune, you're just never going to see another film like that again. That's not going to happen. David Lynch is not going to try his hand at a sci-fi classic. There's only one of them, is what I'm saying, and I if we can't have Jodorowsky handle it, I'm glad David Lynch had to go.
I was just going to bring that up. The
Ridley Scott was supposed to do it.
Oh,
that would have been something.
Yeah, Ridley was supposed to do that after Alien, and he ended up doing Blade Runner instead.
Well, I'll tell you, I worked years ago on a made-for-sci-fi channel movie. Originally, this story, I had typed it up and included it in my published review, which is now at ZekeFilm.org, of Blade Runner: The Final Cut, 10 years ago when that came out. 3 years prior to that, in 2004, we were filming a made-for-sci-fi channel movie called The Black Hole.
Okay. I remember when you were on that shoot.
Yeah, I worked in the art department on that movie. This is not in relation to the Walt Disney black hole. This is a different black hole. This is Judd Nelson and Christy Swanson in downtown St. Louis trying to stop some sort of black hole. I've never seen the movie yet. I have it here in my DVD collection. I haven't watched it. Anyway, we're making that movie, and the guy doing special effects was claiming to be the prop guy on Blade Runner. We got to talking one night, and he talked for quite a while about working on Blade Runner as the prop guy. And this is why I took it out of the published review, because I felt like this is a little dishy, but I'm going to say it here. And just take it with a grain of salt, because this is someone else's story. This guy said that he was, fiddling around, like, perfecting Harrison Ford's gun, over and over and over and over again. And Ridley Scott kept coming in and rejecting it and saying no. And Ridley Scott was driving everyone in the crew bonkers, because they said he was being a total prima donna who had not yet earned this level of, of demandingness.
I have heard that he was really difficult on that film, and he kind of went through crew members. Didn't they make up offensive T-shirts to kind of to make fun? Yeah, they did. They made offensive T-shirts to make fun of Ridley.
Dangerous Days documentary talks a lot about it, and Ridley all but admits that he was a pain.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because it's funny that this same guy says several years later he went to work for Ridley Scott again on the movie Someone to Watch Over Me. And he said it was a different Ridley Scott. He was so easygoing. He was like, yep, that looks good. Let's do this. And he said it was a completely different deal. Ridley had kind of aged into his career, and maybe a lot of the older crew members that were being driven nuts by young Ridley Scott had aged out at that point. But anyhow, I don't know. It's significant, though, to say, Someone to Watch Over Me is not a movie that we're still talking about, and Blade Runner, of course, is.
A lot of Ridley's art.
Yeah. Yeah. But of course, Ridley Scott, I mean, it's on the impact of Blade Runner is undeniable. And the fact that it was made, that it was, a flop, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was a flop on release, but you can pretty much chart, it created its own sci-fi subgenre, and not many movies can say that they did that.
Now, how did that happen, though? If the movie was a flop,
I think probably what happened was, the right people saw it, or at least a lot of people, filmmakers saw it and was like, that's a cool look. I can do that for pretty cheap.
I don't think people were ready for it, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't think where we were in 1982, people just weren't ready for something like Blade Runner.
Well, and keep in mind, was it the summer?
Yeah, it was June of 1982.
Okay, this was a busy summer. This was the summer that gave us
the summer movie.
Maybe
E.T.
Yeah, E.T.
Wrath of Khan.
Poltergeist.
Thing,
sure.
Yeah, but Thing was a bomb too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
A great movie, but still a bomb.
It's. I feel
Poltergeist, I think, or was Poltergeist dating
Poltergeist? Yeah, Poltergeist, E.T., Wrath of Khan, Blade Runner, and I feel like we're missing one. Not Thing. I wasn't thinking of that one. Maybe that's it. Anyway, that's a lot. That's a lot going on.
That's a
Conan.
lot. Yeah, Conan.
Oh, Conan. Yes. So, hey, what a summer! My goodness.
Yeah, I remember.
It was a good summer to go to the movies.
It was.
Yeah. So the fact that we have all of that happening, I mean, that may have contributed. Everybody couldn't stop seeing E.T. I'll tell you my take on Blade Runner. I may be the least Blade Runner fan here. I very much respect and appreciate the movie, the original. And I think I feel the same way about the new one. I'm not obsessed with it. I'm not head over heels in love with the movie. I'd gladly watch it again. It took several viewings of the original Blade Runner for me to get into it. The first exposure I had to it was reading the Marvel comic book magazine-sized adaptation. It made no sense to me. I didn't get it. Years later, hey, there it is.
What does he have a cape? What is that? Let me click on it.
It's 3 different.
Oh, okay. It would be great if he had a superhero cape.
Yeah, I remember I was spending the night at my friend's house, and he had that. So, my friend had fallen asleep, so then I sat there and read that, and I was like, wow, I don't know what this is. This is not Han Solo. I don't know what this is. So anyways, then the director's cut came out. Of course, we all know there's several different cuts of Blade Runner. And the director's cut came out in the early 1990s, and I that was the first one I saw. And I have to tell everybody, don't watch that one first. I was lost. Later, I had to go back, and I found a mom-and-pop video store that still had the original theatrical version, and I watched that, and I actually liked it more. Because I could understand it a little bit, and with the narration, and plus the film noir with the voiceover and everything, I kind of like that. But then in 2007, the final cut, that kind of brought everything together. And
how much different was that than the director's cut, though?
Well, it looked better. I remember it felt a lot more vibrant. And honestly, Dean, I can't tell you what was different about it at this point. I don't think I've watched it in 10 years. I wish I could tell you. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who could chart the difference between all the cuts.
I'm just talking about that you were confused when you saw the director's cut, but I guess you'd seen the director's cut enough times to where the final cut didn't confuse you.
Yeah, I'd seen the director's cut. Then I saw the theatrical cut, which I had to go find. It was hard to find. I looked for it for a while around town. Yeah. And then I was finally able to rent it. And, of course, the old VHS tape looked like crap. But then, the final cut looks immaculate. And I got to see that in the theater as a critic. So it was me and 2 other guys that showed up that morning. And, it was I came out feeling like for the first time, I really got it and enjoyed it. Like, for real. And with this new one, I feel like I get it. I don't know that it has the lingering mysteries and questions that Ridley Scott kind of left us with, that people debated for so long after the fact. Does this movie leave you guys with any questions?
Where on earth did he get leather and fur for his fashionable jacket?
Are we going to be talking about that for 35 years?
Yeah, we'll be talking about that for 35 years. My first exposure to Blade Runner was actually, I did read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. We had a bookstore in town where I think all the paperbacks were $1. So I thought I could get into books as a young woman, I thought I could get into Philip K. Dick as a young woman, and I don't think Philip K. Dick ever worked for me. There's that whole thing with the mood organ and the pet sheep in the book.
That's not a good one to start with.
Oh, right. A friend of mine was getting rid of his VHS collection. He gave me his copy of Blade Runner just to have, and I didn't get it. And I thought I was kind of alone. I just didn't understand it. Some other people have kind of pointed out Deckard's not really that likable. The relationship is very cold. There's not really a mystery. This is a film noir. It's a mystery movie, but there's not really a mystery. He's not really he does do investigations. He doesn't do a lot of investigations. Everything's pretty much spelled out. And I kind of thought, well, that's it. He just kind of goes after and kills him and everything. There's not really anything you find out. And it never occurred to me on my first viewing that he could be a replicant. It didn't occur to me. I watched it again fairly recently. I would say maybe 2-3 years ago. My roommate was watching it. I joined my roommate. I watched it again. Maybe I missed something, on the first viewing. And again, I love the way it looks. I love the cityscape. I love the costumes. I love his prop gun. And I love Deckard's shirt, even something as simple as the design of Deckard's shirt. Am I in love with the plot? I don't know if I'm really in love with the plot. I love the snake. I love Priss. I love Roy Batty. And, it's been pointed out that Deckard is our character, but, Batty's actually more interesting.
He's the hero.
Yeah. Blade Runner is a wonderful, gorgeous movie. The plot was never my favorite part. I've talked about it with some people, and now I appreciate it more. But I think the point's been made that the new film kind of takes that, and the new film is very, very long, and it's all plot. And it is there is it's all investigation, and it's all plot.
Dean, what's your backstory of Blade Runner?
I think the first experience I had was I was at a bookstore in Atlanta in 1982. I was about 11, and I saw a poster for Blade Runner hanging up, and it was of Harrison Ford with the Voight Kampf in front of him. And I looked at that, and I saw it with a really cool futuristic font for Blade Runner, and I thought, oh wow, what is that? Harrison Ford, he did space opera, he did adventure, and now he's doing futuristic sci-fi. I've got to see this. What is this? And my dad sort of picked up on it, that I was interested in it, and about a month later he showed up at home with the Marvel comic, bought it for me, and really I read it like multiple times, loved it. Didn't necessarily understand it like you, Jim, but I just went with it, and really liked the darker, more subversiveness of it that I had not really experienced in any other science fiction movie I'd seen up until that point. I'd seen Mad Max and some of the Road Warrior movies, but there was something just the undertone that was subversive about Blade Runner that had not really been around in a science fiction film before. that wasn't. It was straightforward in a plot way, but not straightforward as far as the tone of the film. And it just, that was, even though, yeah, I agree with Pamela that the plot is pretty straightforward and there's not really that much there, but there's just something about the tone that was so completely out of left field in 1982 that nobody else had ever done. I didn't get to actually see the movie until a year after it came out on home box office, HBO, because it was rated R, and so I didn't get to see it. And when it came on HBO, I watched as many times as I could. Yeah, I had trouble following some of the plot, and it wasn't easy, but I just couldn't stop watching it. I was just transfixed by it. What else? And then I saw the director's cut in the 90s when it actually played in the theater here in Asheville at the Fine Arts Theater here. And I saw it in 94, 95 when it played in the theater, when it was released. And then I made the mistake about a year later of reading the Blade Runner novel sequel. I don't know if you guys remember that. The Edge of Human. Awful. Just don't even.
Who wrote that?
It was K.W. Jeter.
Okay.
And he actually wrote, I think, 2 or 3 other sequels to Blade Runner after that. And I was really excited to read it when it came out because no one else had done that before. And the Star Wars movies had some. The Timothy Zahn novels were really popular, and when they first came out, so I thought, well, I'll give this a try. And I got into it, and it was like you've got the templates of Batty and Rachel walking around, like the human templates, and it's just like, that doesn't work. That's not cool to do that.
That might have been the movie that we were forgetting from 1982. Was it Return of the Jedi?
No.
That was
83.
83. Okay. Was this novel, was it the sequel? Was it intended?
It was the sequel. It was a sequel to the movie.
To the movie. I was about to ask, is it supposed to be a follow-up to Philip K. Dick? That's unusual.
No, it was not a follow-up to the Philip K. Dick novel. And I did read Dick's novel, I think, right before I read the sequel. And I read Dick's novel for the first time, and I was like, wow, how did they make Blade Runner out of this?
Yeah, they're completely different.
Yeah. So
Mike, what's your Blade Runner deal?
It was an interesting story. 1982 came around, and I remember reading about Blade Runner in like Starlog back in the day. I actually didn't see it till I was like a senior in high school. It was the special longer cut, the longer and more graphic cut. That was the only thing you could get on videotape at the time. And I saw it, and it was good. But by that time, it wasn't like this, game changer thing. I mean, we'd had Max Headroom on TV. We'd had a lot of Blade Runner ripoffs by that point, so that it wasn't like suddenly, this is like a new genre. It was like, okay, well, I've seen this sort of before, but this is where it all comes from, and I can see it and appreciate it like that. When I first saw it, it was by that time, this was like 88, 89, 90, somewhere in there. And so it had been built up by then as, oh, it's the classic of the genre. And it was like,
okay,
this is really good, but not sure if it's quite the classic. It took a couple more screenings of it, watching it. Okay, I can see, yes, this is a classic.
Okay, so you're kind of with me on this. It sounds like where you appreciate it, you can see what is remarkable about it, but it doesn't. It's not something that you think about or go back to. It's not your passion.
It is not one of my passion things. It is something that I appreciated. So when they came up with the 4-disc DVD set of the final cut and all the different cuts and the 2-hour documentary, I was like, of course I was like, I must have.
Sure. The briefcase. Do you
Oh,
get the
yeah.
briefcase?
I did not get the
I wanted
briefcase.
the briefcase, but I just couldn't do it.
For me, I have the whole shebang on Blu-ray, but it's just in the clamshell. It is the first Blu-ray I ever purchased. I found it at the local used record shop, vintage vinyl, and I bought it about a year before I bought my Blu-ray player.
Yep. That was me in the Prisoner box set. But
Oh yeah.
but yeah. Anyhow, so yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's grown on me over the years. I appreciate it as, you know, a similar work of sci-fi. But yeah, if I were to name like the top 5 sci-fi movies, top 10 sci-fi movies that I would watch again and again, it's probably not on there, but I do recognize it as, you know, a giant.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. Pamela, do you regard Blade Runner as one of those movies you cannot do without in life?
That's a good question. I definitely would recommend, if you haven't seen it, go see it. I'm not gonna say that you're gonna automatically like it, because the general consensus here sounds like nobody automatically likes it. It sounds like
about you.
No, I did. I automatically liked it.
I wouldn't say top 10. I would say maybe number 11.
Okay.
I would say number 11, but you know, Ridley Scott has made top 10 with Alien, the first Alien, I think. So I think he's fine. He doesn't need to make my top 10.
Okay, that's fine. So he's already there.
Yeah.
Dean, is Blade Runner?
Blade Runner is my favorite movie of all time.
I was just gonna. I was like trying to figure out how do I go
put
there.
It out there.
Yeah,
it's for a while.
Is it or is it not your favorite movie? Yes, it is.
It is.
Okay, cool. And of
Although
course,
I'll tell you, the new ones really it's haunting me big time.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And it's.
See, Blade Runner to me by that time, it was like, this is just Brazil, but less funny.
Yeah.
Oh.
The gentleman that gave me my copy of Blade Runner, it was down to 2 movies. It was either going to be Blade Runner or Brazil, and he chose to give me Blade Runner. So I who knows? You know, in an alternative universe, who knows what would have happened?
Well, do you think the design of Blade Runner may have somehow influenced or emboldened Brazil?
Oh, definitely. I think Terry Gilliam is Terry Gilliam is on record as saying, you know, Blade Runner is a big influence for him. You know, he had been batting around the idea, but, you know, it was like, you know, Ridley Scott's Blade Runner was the one that showed you could do this, you know, and do it in a big way like that.
There you go.
And he was very mad at the original cut. Because he said, if you spend the entire movie saying that replicants can't live more than 4 years, the next to the last line shouldn't be, oh, by the way, this one can live longer.
Yeah.
Those are the next 6. Yeah.
Well, things change. Hey, what can you say?
And according to the sequel, this one that can live longer also has some other talents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
So, okay, we have to talk about the new movie. That's what this episode is supposed to be about. So where do we start here? Ryan Gosling. I don't have a problem with Ryan Gosling as an actor or in this movie. In fact, the more I think about it, the more I think his casting is inspired, considering the world he's in, the blankness of him in this case. He's somebody who, I think he's got a deep well of emotion in there, but he's also got this kind of
stoicism.
Yes, yes,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The stoic with a heart of gold.
Yeah, and it's so much. Well, it's Roger Deakins' movie, like Mike said, or was that Mike? Who said that?
Yes, I said that.
Yeah, it's this is a.
I said that. I'll say it again.
boy, did they get the right cinematographer for this movie. Yeah, that's but beyond that, of course, we are looking at Ryan Gosling almost the whole time. And that's one thing I appreciate about Blade Runner 2049 is that it is, even though it is this sprawling 2-hour and 40-minute thing, that is beautiful and astonishing, and yes, you are there a while. I don't mind that I was there a while, and it's a very personal story. It's not a giant, global, massive armies, and you know what I'm saying. Like, the stakes are not anything really. It's just this one guy trying to figure out who he is. And I don't think he even understands that that's what he's doing for the first hour.
Yeah.
Although
they keep telling us that, they keep telling us that this is all going to change the world, though. So,
well, I guess.
World changing.
But it's a very personal story. That's what I'm saying. This is a handful of people in a, they're in California. They don't really go beyond that. This isn't, this isn't a James Bond thing or a, Independence Day alien invasion or the Avengers or anything like that. It's a small personal story, really. That's how I kind of came out feeling about it.
Yeah.
And then they hit us with us critics. As we were the daytime screening. They're like, oh, by the way, here's a sheet of paper that Denis Villeneuve wants us to read to you. And it's a whole long list of things that we can't mention in our reviews. And it was long. It's like, don't talk about who's a replicant and who isn't. Don't mention. Okay, fine. Maybe we're getting a little into spoiler territory here, but don't mention the true nature of Ryan Gosling's girlfriend. That he lives with.
I didn't know the true nature of Ryan Gosling walking in.
Yeah.
Did anyone else assume he was going to be a different sort of person that he wound up being?
I went in completely having no knowledge of it. So
I went in cold.
First scene was a bit of a fake out. I was
the first scene was a bit of a fake out. Yeah.
I was like, oh, come on. You expect him to? Oh, wait. I guess that makes sense.
Okay, well, let's throw up the spoiler sign now. We'll talk about the movie and what happened in the movie, and we'll start with the beginning, which, I think it's okay to talk about the beginning anyhow. But boy, like I said, the restrictions on this movie that we were asked to abide by as critics was like nothing else I've seen before.
No, well, then at what point what do you talk about?
I don't know. You talk about how beautiful
what you see in the trailer.
Yeah.
Which, I think there's a good argument to be made that the whole thing. I was talking about this with somebody else the other day, that the way it seems to want to be told is that Harrison Ford showing up in the last 40 minutes or whatever that is, and I think it really was the last 40 minutes only that Harrison Ford's in it, is intended to be a major surprise. You're not, it's like, I think the story was conceived and written with that as the kind of big, like, jaw-dropping reveal. Not Harrison Ford is on the poster, Harrison Ford is in the trailers, Harrison Ford is all over the place promoting the movie. It would have been, I think, a lot more effective had we not known he was even in it at all.
Oh, it would have been just mind. Yeah, that would have been
impossible for that to happen. Though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they want to make sure they get butts in seats.
Exactly.
And Harrison Ford can put butts in seats.
It might have even been something as trite as Harrison Ford's contract says he has to be on the poster.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'm just saying, I think that whoever was originally conceiving the story,
Hampton Fancher.
I think that was the intention. I think I could be wrong. I don't know. but it sure feels that way.
Yeah, well, it's. I mean that's an impossibility. I mean, when you got Harrison Ford, you can't not say he's going to be in the movie.
Mm.
Well, I did have a moment of thinking, where's Harrison Ford? You know?
Yeah, I definitely thought the same thing. Yeah. Where is he?
Yeah, it's been 2 hours. He should have shown up by now.
I honestly assumed they were going to be partners up against the, kind of just figuring this whole thing out together. I thought that was what the movie was going to be. So the movie faked me out, and maybe your embargo was good because I wasn't spoiled.
Well, I mean, it was just kind of an unprecedented ask. A lot of it is common sense that a lot of us try to abide by anyhow. Writing about a film. I mean, people who want to be completely unspoiled, they're not going to read the reviews by anybody before they go in to see it. Hopefully, they'll read it afterwards. But beforehand, I don't. I do that sometimes for something that I don't want to be spoiled by. But yeah, this movie, Dave Bautista at the beginning as the aging replicant, who Ryan Gosling is sent to dispose of, I suppose, or collect, retire. Thank you. What a great little touching performance that is before he has to start throwing Ryan Gosling to the wall.
And it's I mean, you guys probably all picked up on it right away. That opening scene was originally written as that's pretty much near the original Blade Runner was supposed to open that way with Deckard coming in, killing a man making soup on a farm.
Yeah, that was supposed to be the first scene of the movie.
Wow. That was the original Blade Runner opening. So I thought that was, I mean, when I kind of recognized that's what was happening, I thought that was really amazing because I had heard about that opening scene. Apparently, written, planned out, never filmed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, from a script writing point of view, though, I think it's a great little scene because it tells you everything you need to know about the situation and who what Kay's job is and how he does his job and what he's up against. So right away you have all that work is done in that scene.
Yeah.
And as I said in my review, that's as efficient as Blade Runner 2049 ever gets. From there, it's kind of a more sprawling thing. I appreciate the movie. I really do. I don't know that it's entirely my thing. I don't know that it'll make my top 10 of the year or not. I don't know right now, but it could. It really could. And I'm starting
Get out there and see it again.
Huh?
Get out there and see it again.
Yeah, I'm starting to very much entertain that notion of seeing it again if I can.
Yeah.
I don't know if that'll be possible, but who's seen it more than once? Just I know, Dean, you have, right?
Yeah, seen it twice.
And me, the person who wasn't even convinced they liked it, is I'm considering it at least a second time. I wanna experience. It's fascinating, and I still am thinking about it.
And Mike, you saw it last night. Are you still thinking about it today, all day, or do you feel like it kind of explained itself sufficiently and you're done with it?
No, I was still thinking about it, and I did seek out many reviews of it online, so I could sort of get my thoughts together on because it is a lot to digest. It isn't something where you just come out of it with a feeling like, oh, that was something. It is definitely something that you have to sort of take in and process more so than many other movies.
Okay, cool. So what else about this film? I mean, I think this one's gonna stick. I don't think this will be like the. I was trying to think when I was writing my piece about other sequels that happened way after the fact, and how so many of them wind up as footnotes.
Yeah.
To the original, and that's it.
So often
Yeah.
it's just a terrible idea.
Andy Hardy comes home. We'll start with the granddaddy of them all.
Wait, what? Explain.
The Andy Hardy series. Mickey Rooney starred in a series of films about the Hardys in the 1930s,
Sure.
1940s, and then, like in the 1950s, they made a one-off sequel where Andy Hardy comes home, where it was all about a grown-up Andy Hardy going back home.
Yeah, everyone
and it
hated
stank. Everyone hated
it. No, I was thinking about Tron Legacy, which I like, but
there's parts of that I like.
Yeah, but still, people don't regard. Yeah, they don't regard that. I mean, people think of Tron and then Tron
that came out in '82.
There you go. That's it, Dean.
Another bomb.
That was it. The summer. That was it. That was the one.
Was that a bomb in '82?
I don't think it made as much money as they wanted it to.
You're right. It did not. But like so many other movies like that, it built up its head of steam, and it got its sequel before Blade Runner did, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. I guess the one that comes to mind, I guess, is the most recent Terminator film. That's I feel like that was kind of a let's tack this on. I guess that's a reboot. But again, just garbage. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I can think of two other Harrison Ford movies that got belated sequels in recent years.
Yes, I guess he's kind of the king of that.
Yeah.
As long as we're talking about spoilers, did anyone else assume that he was just doing Blade Runner to get killed off? I got this cranky Harrison Ford in my head, modern day Harrison Ford, just cranky. Oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Just kill me off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Bill Murray in the Ghostbusters remake.
Harrison Ford actually likes Deckard. He didn't like Han Solo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
See, I sort of imagined thinking of the last scene. Denis, was like, okay, you want to be killed off? Okay, let's do this big drowning scene. You're going to be working on this in the next 2 weeks. And by the end of it, Harrison was like, okay. I want to live.
Yeah, I honestly thought he'd, it'd be like a kind of slow motion drowning thing and he'd just be dead and that would, it'd be very sad. I honestly thought he was just doing it just to die.
I entertained that thought as well, that it's like, is he here to get killed? But yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, part of it is
it wouldn't have worked if he had died.
I think you're right. It's like, why even have him in the movie then?
No point.
Yeah.
The point. The whole movie that falls apart if he dies. Unlike Star Wars, spoilers.
Sure.
Where his death was actually pivotal to the story.
Right. And who knows how pivotal it might, in fact, turn out to be. We'll find out in the more future Star Wars. It's kind of funny. Harrison Ford is such a, integral part of both Star Wars and Blade Runner, which I've been told that, those of us who came up of our age here, came up on science fiction movies, you're either a Star Wars person or a Blade Runner person. You can like both, but you can't really love both equally. It's one or the other. Kind of like the Beatles and Elvis. Which is it for you?
It's the Beatles and the Stones.
The Rolling Stones.
Well, no, it's the Beatles and Elvis, but or I suppose Beatles and Stones could work as well. But for me, of course, it was Star Wars. I suppose for Dina, it's Blade Runner.
No, not necessarily, because Blade Runner was so low key and so.
Yeah.
In the 80s, nobody knew what Blade Runner was.
There's a slow burn.
Yeah, and so it wasn't even a thought. It was Star Wars and Star Trek.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't mean like pitting them against each other. I just mean like in terms of different kinds of science fiction that you like. The way of one's brain works.
Kind of an optimistic future versus a pessimistic future?
Possibly, or even not a future at all.
Or arty science fiction versus non-arty science fiction.
Yeah, it's like arty science fiction versus a fairy tale. which is what Star Wars is.
Fantasy
But
with laser guns.
yeah, fairy tale with laser guns and spaceships, laser swords. So yeah, no, I would. We have Robin Wright in this film as the chief. Very good performance there. I don't know what else. What else is significant here? We should have an eye to wrapping this up. But is there any other major thoughts and bombshells that any of us might be sitting on?
Not sure about the bombshells. I think that I do like the stylistic nods to the original. That they tried to maintain the spirit of what Ridley Scott did with the first, but then sort of build on it. I thought Hans Zimmer, tried to keep his Zimmerism to a minimum. I could have done it with a few less.
I actually like the Inception noises. I like that. Yeah.
Well, I'm a big fan of the original Vangelis soundtrack, so I was like, a little less of the Inception, a little more. Get out the vintage 1970 synthesizers, the Yamaha,
the foghorns.
Most of this was done on a synthesizer, though.
Yeah.
I did hear a theory. I'm not sure if it's a Reddit thing, but I did hear a theory. You know how Blade Runner, I'm not sure where I read this. Blade Runner, we see Atari and we see Pan Am and we see, and they're very respectful. Again, they're respectful homages to the original film. I love seeing them. I love, the visuals, just gorgeous, this beautiful ruined cityscape. But I like the theory that this is a world in which Apple never happens. So this is what happens when there's no Apple. You have a thriving Atari, you have a thriving Sony, and nobody. The dude's making his notes on paper. There's no trees. Where is he getting paper? But this is a world where Apple never happens, and I thought that was a very funny theory.
Well,
Is it
just that is good. Is it just me, or am I like the whole conceit of the blackout that they talk about, where all the tech was lost? And I guess this is something that happened between the two films.
There's actually a short film of it, actually.
Like an animated film, yeah.
Animated film.
What, like in conjunction with the new movie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's 3 short prequels that were done by Luke Scott did 2 of them, and then a Japanese guy did an anime of one of them, and they're around. All you have to do is look them up. I've got 2 of them on my Facebook page, but they're all 3 really good. And those were the spoilers I did see before I saw the movie, but they're just timeline things. They're part of the timeline, but you can actually see what happened in the blackout in the animated or the anime.
So not really spoilers then, just a little more.
No, just timeline.
I mean, in your opinion, was the blackout just kind of a way of just kind of a plot device to just kind of explain away lack of information? In your opinion?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I mean, it's a good one. And also a way of.
Well, it also got the replicants outlawed.
Yeah, and keeping tech very close to what it looked like in the original Blade Runner.
Yeah.
It's not like way advanced. It's just, the holograms are bigger now.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I took it to be. I thought it's a clever device, which I have no problem with. I like a clever device.
One of the things that I picked up on that was really cool is when Kay gets to the casino to look for Deckard. If you listen and you watch it, basically that whole scene is the Bradbury scene in the first Blade Runner in reverse. So the replicant is the one that ends up being hunted instead of the Blade Runner who was hunted in the first movie. So they sort of switch. Harrison Ford and Ryan Gosling sort of switch places, and you can actually hear little bits and pieces of the music from the original film in the background. So it was that was a cool homage to the first film in there.
So yes, speaking of cool musical homages, of course the song, the background music that plays at the end is from the original soundtrack.
Oh,
great.
Spoiler alert: the track is "Time to Die."
Okay. And well, of course, the music of Blade Runner 2049 was in the movie news, ramping right up to the release. I think, what was it, a month before the movie opened, they announced that the composer Johan Johansson, who is Denis Villeneuve's usual composer, was out, and they were getting Hans Zimmer. I mean,
yeah.
Did Hans Zimmer really slam this together in a month or whatever that was?
We had another guy that was the primary person.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
Well, I've heard that about Hans Zimmer, that he's kind of every movie with his name on it isn't necessarily just him. Sometimes it's him overseeing the Hans Zimmer factory, so to speak.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Kind of like Chalui. Chalui's got all this artwork out there, and it's kind of his team that's making it. Okay.
Right. That's kind of what I hear is how Hans Zimmer operates these days. It's like I kind of take it to be like the Christopher Nolan movies are actually him, and a lot of this other stuff isn't. I don't know where something like this would land.
I don't know. He performed all of those in concert this summer.
Oh, did he?
On tour, yeah. He took all of his music on tour this summer and played.
Yeah.
He was at Bonnaroo and Coachella. So
that Bonnaroo clip of The Dark Knight was fantastic.
Yeah. I think he spends most of his time locked up in his studio doing stuff. I mean, he's churning out stuff constantly. The guy that he got to play with him on Blade Runner has actually done a lot of soundtrack music himself. So he's an actual soundtrack composer that's done other movies. I just can't remember his name or figure out what some of the other films are. So it was more of the Denis Villeneuve went in and in an emergency meeting last minute and grabbed Hans and showed the movie to the two guys.
It's Benjamin Wallfisch.
Benjamin Wallfisch, yes. And he's done other films himself.
Cool. I wonder if we'll ever get to hear that Johan Johansson music, though. That would have been... It's like the
Alex North.
Yeah.
2001, yeah.
Yeah, we'll play those. Or maybe we could just play the Alex North 2001 music over Blade Runner 2049. I don't know. See how that plays.
Oh, I hear it syncs up to Pink Floyd's The Wall, in case you want to try that out.
Okay. The Wizard of Oz. Sure.
I did want to make a comment about something that really disappointed me about comparing the two films. Blade Runner, as I've said before, I love the look. I mean, I think that this is part of the visual of the movie. I think some people might dismiss it and say, that's nonsensical. It's not an important part of the movie. But for me, it really took me out of it. I loved the way that the original designer for Blade Runner made, had their style wardrobe. And we mentioned earlier that technology has changed from Blade Runner to Blade Runner 2049, but not so much as to be completely unidentifiable. I'm going to say it. The clothing in Blade Runner 2049 looks like someone went to the Gap. I mean, I saw the trailer and I couldn't believe that I'm seeing Harrison Ford in a sloppy t-shirt. Yeah, he's living out. It doesn't look futuristic. I remember they kind of threw Joy into a yellow plastic jacket. And to me, it just looked like a very, very outdated version of what, a person in the future might wear. I don't know where Ryan Gosling got the leather for his jacket. Did he kill a replicant cow? Everybody, the evil, the evil love, she's wearing peep toe shoes, which were, in style maybe 2-3 years ago here. It just, none of it worked for me, none of it. And I actually spoke to the actress who played Love yesterday. Her name's Sylvia Hoeks. I think I might be botching the pronunciation. She's Dutch. and I asked her just how much input she had on her costuming, and she kind of spoke around the answer, but my impression was not at all. Not at all. I think they put it on her and she was done. But just because I am such a fan of what they did, everybody from, the woman with the snake to Pris to Deckard to Rachel's very iconic look, it was a universe. And I didn't think the costuming for this worked at all. And I know that's a quibble, but I was disappointed with that.
Okay. I don't know that it occurred to me. I referred to Harrison Ford's T-shirt as the cool guy T-shirt.
Cool guy?
Yeah.
I expected to see barbecue stains on that.
Oh, that would not be cool.
Well, but one of the things that makes Blade Runner interesting, though, the original, and this may not be the case with as much with the clothing and the fashion, was the amalgamation of old and new styles together.
I love that. Loved it. Yeah.
And I mean, can't you just apply that to Harrison Ford's T-shirt too, though?
Right. I think he had a very basic shirt in the first Blade Runner, but it didn't look like it didn't look like something you could get in 1982. I think styles would change in the 35, in the time period, and they could argue, well, this is not what you'd be wearing in the original Blade Runner, but none of it worked for me. I was very put off by that.
Don't styles and fashions come and go?
They come and go, but I'm telling you, Harrison Ford's wearing a Gap T-shirt with barbecue stains. Like that really, I don't know, that stuck with me. I just didn't think anybody was presented correctly in that regard. There's that close up towards the end where you can see Ryan Gosling's shoes. He's wearing like hiking boots. Just none of it worked for me. I don't know who they got, but not something I enjoyed about the sequel. A lot of it looked great. That just didn't work for me.
Okay, sounds like a valid criticism to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I point out, Jim? Can I point out one more thing that I thought was interesting?
Absolutely.
And one of you guys might have a better eye for this or better not understanding of this, but the scene where Wallace brings Rachel out. This is spoilers. Brings out a Rachel replicant.
General Tarkin Rachel.
Yeah.
Yeah, General Tarkin Rachel, exactly. When he brings her out and Harrison Ford says her eyes were green, her eyes were not green. John Young does not have green eyes. She has brown eyes. So, I mean, I got the picture that Deckard was just effing with Wallace.
Oh.
Wow. So that's weird.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought Deckard was just giving him the finger, and he said her eyes were green just to mess with him.
See, I don't
because
know
he wasn't being affected by it, the Rachel.
Then again, he is awfully old. He could have just forgotten.
That's true.
Maybe that wasn't actually Deckard. Maybe they just captured a replicant Deckard.
Yeah. Now here's the that was a big point, by the way, coming out of the theater. On the list of things not to reveal in your review is that Sean Young, her character from the first film, wanders in at the end there. We're not supposed to talk about that.
Sorry.
So yeah, this is in the spoiler zone where we've been for a while now. No, you and of course you guys don't know the stupid paper that I was made to read. But here's my question about that. Sean Young was of course credited in the credits. Was she doing a motion capture thing or what?
I think it was the photograph.
It was a photo of her. Yeah.
And then if you look in the credits, it does say Rachel's Rachel's. I don't think it says body double, but it says something like Rachel's movement double. So I'm guessing it's another girl's body, maybe with Sean Young. Maybe Sean Young did the performance with her face, and they kind of did some. My guess, it's another girl's body. They captured maybe Sean Young's expressions and kind of just blended the two of them together.
Sean Young doesn't look like that anymore.
No, she looks a little different.
Well, no, that's my question is, was Sean Young herself involved in Blade Runner 2049?
I think so, yeah. I think she did the photo.
Okay.
Yeah, and she apparently also consulted with the person who was like her body double to talk about how she moved in the original movie.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just haven't read up on any of this.
Mm.
But it just occurred to me, that question. Maybe you guys would know.
Did you guys think that the Tears and Rain theme that came on when Ryan Gosling was dying, did you think it was forced poignancy? The music?
No, I think it worked.
Callback.
Yeah.
Do you think it
It's
worked?
a callback, and as I said, it's been ambiguous enough that people have been debating whether or not Ryan Gosling died, and then they had to point out the music track that we used was from the original. It was called "A Time to Die."
Oh.
Do the math.
So it's not the ending of Drive where you think he's dead and then he starts moving all of a sudden.
No.
No.
Yeah. It never occurred to me that this guy might not be dead. I was a little surprised.
I think he's dead. Yeah.
Because like, if everything they do, whatever they bring back one of these movies, of course, the studio, not necessarily the filmmakers, but the studio has an eye to franchising it anew, right? So they're thinking we're going to have, whatever, Blade Runner 2067 next, whatever it is, in a few years. And here they killed the hero. And, you really think Harrison Ford's going to want to do it again?
It's not making enough money either.
How's this movie doing? I don't even know.
Not well.
No.
Not what they expected. It might do better this weekend.
And for all the they did everything right. It's got great word of mouth. I mean, I'm trying to think of a movie star that's going to be more of a sure thing than Ryan Gosling. I can't. He's a big name. Harrison Ford, you get in people who are nostalgic for the old movie. You get older people, an older audience who are still going to pay for movies. They did everything correctly. I kind of feel the same way about Pacific Rim. The director was told, you're not being inclusive enough. You need to, you need to have a movie that more people can go see, like a big crowd pleaser. You make Pacific Rim and it still isn't this smash. So, I mean, what can you do to sell Blade Runner 2049? I couldn't tell you.
Well, it's a big art movie, so maybe that makes sense that it's not. And of course, it's so in keeping with its predecessor.
Right, the ultimate homage.
Yeah.
I honestly hope it doesn't make a ton of money, just so that there won't be any more films.
Interesting.
I want it to stay. I want the two movies to be it. In the Blade Runner universe.
It's like, okay, they announced they're making a sequel, and indeed, if you're like me and with these things where, it's a movie that you love and cherish, and they say we're going to do another one, and they're like, no, I don't know if I want you to do another one because you might.
I was completely against it. It was the most. What's the quote people have said? It's a sequel, unnecessary sequel.
Right.
It's totally unnecessary, but it was great. I mean,
yeah. Well,
and go ahead.
I think time will. I could be wrong, but I think time will vindicate this movie. It won't be considered an unnecessary sequel. It will be considered the Blade Runner movies will be considered of a piece.
Well, now it's a contender for Best Picture.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, and I will. Yeah.
Because it's not making any money and it's not a big box office spectacle.
Well, no, it was always
a spectacle.
They were always hedging that angle, Warner Brothers. A little bit of, again with the critics groups and things like which I'm a president of a critics group. So, the Warner Brothers is playing this. I think they're looking back on like what happened with Mad Max Fury Road, which nobody was expecting that to be the Oscar contender that it wound up being. They weren't expecting that to be the case, and they just ran with it.
Yeah.
Because they were at least that smart. In this case, I think they're ready. They've got this and they've got Dunkirk. and they're both just being sold as blockbusters, and they're art movies that are blockbusters. And they're going to try to get awards too. So which one of those they push harder, we'll see. I suspect it'll be Dunkirk, honestly. But this one, they definitely have it lined up, and I think they have for quite a while.
Yeah. Well, considering there are, what, 20 Best Picture nominees these days, I see it very likely that it'll be nominated.
Yeah. Well, it may or it may not.
I mean, just give it to him for the cinematography. Just give it.
Yeah.
Like, don't even try.
I think that's maybe the biggest foregone conclusion of the whole Oscars so far. I mean, we're talking about an award that's going to be given in like 6 months from now. So, things could always change. But of course, Roger Deakins is
13 times.
13.
There you go.
Yeah.
Which, whoo, that's the standing record, I believe, right? The current record, anyhow.
Yeah.
They finally gave one to Ennio Morricone.
Is there an image from the movie that you guys, it particularly resonated with you? The image of the tree, the image of Elvis Presley, this kind of jacked up, malfunctioning Elvis Presley on a stage with beams of spotlights all around him. And I mean, this is a recurring thing. Elvis is malfunctioning. Joy is malfunctioning. Just this system breaking down while the landscape breaks down. He lands in this area with these, completely impoverished people who are just attacking them. And then there's just this drone strike from the sky. What did you come out with it being like, that was my favorite moment?
Though what sort of stands out for me is the post-apocalyptic, the bound up Las Vegas. That sequence there, when he was flying through all the ruins of the old casinos and everything. That really stood out because that was, it wasn't just, stuff that we'd seen in Blade Runner or in the Blade Runner knockoffs. This was something that was new and interesting. And so that for me was the sort of what has stuck with me so far. Although I did love Elvis.
Well, I guess the images that I keep thinking of is the flying car, wide, super wide shots of where you see the car just in the sky, and it's just kind of, those look great. And there's this weird tactile smog that's, future smog, I guess. I don't know. And that, of course, the big naked purple girl talking to him was a very odd scene.
Yeah, I think they spoke about how they wanted her to be even bigger. They wanted it to be this just massive scale. Yeah. And it's this moment. I feel like it's almost this moment where he realizes kind of that he hasn't had an individual experience. He's just kind of everything again. This breakdown. He's realizing that this person or this figure that he had kind of devoted himself to was just kind of a shared experience.
Yeah.
Again, I think more and more about it, and it's just coming out.
It's kind of like has modern ramifications to it as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it feels like that movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix, which I was a huge fan of.
Well, we had I definitely was thinking of Her during the lovemaking scene.
Right.
And her the voice tries to connect with a real body, and again in this one the hologram tries to connect with a real body. That's exactly the scene I was thinking of when I saw it.
Right, and then you just said the shared experience of the relationship, and where we find out in Her that Samantha has been, with how many thousands
500
other guys, and it is like this kind of techno cheating kind of it's like Like, wow, you
Well,
know.
I thought I was the special one. That's the
Yeah,
attitude. I thought I was the
exactly.
special one,
Right.
and he starts to realize he's not special because of you know, his interactions with this hologram. He's not special because of how he was born. He's special by his actions.
Yeah. Well, that the whole exchange and the way that it's visually realized. I mean, um, it's, you know, I can just zone out on what's being said sometimes. You know, so I guess that's certainly grounds for going back again to see the movie.
Jim, some images that was left with were, I was really into the scenes with the actress Carla Jury, who basically played Deckard's daughter. The scenes with her making the memories. I thought that was really fascinating. That's the scene where we first meet her, and then the scene where he returns back to her, or not returns, but goes and meets her. And I thought that whole section was great. I don't know if you guys noticed, but the very first image we see in the Las Vegas scene is of Deckard's old car from the first movie, abandoned. Do you guys remember that?
The one they were driving off into the woods?
Yes. That's the very first image you see in the Las Vegas scene.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
That's pretty good.
Is his abandoned car.
Well, you know, it's kind of funny. I remember in 1989, I went to what was then known as, you know, Disney MGM Studios theme park in Florida. And, you know, they have this big, you know, one of the big movie rides that you go on, not the Great Movie Ride, which they just closed down, but one of them where you're in line and there's all these like ships and cars, and like there was a snow speeder from The Empire Strikes Back that was supposedly full size, but I don't think it was. And then there was a Blade Runner car next to it. And I don't know if it was, you know, again, I was not a fan enough, certainly not then, to know which car we're talking about, you know, what car was this, but it was just sitting there, and man, you know, this is 1989. I mean, it's still the same decade that movie came out, and this thing looked like junk. I mean, just horrible, you know. So I don't think it's even there anymore now. But I was like, wow, if Harrison Ford's car stuck around that long, they must be made better in world.
Yeah.
Anyway. So yeah, no. As far as things broken down and not working, it's like that's just across the board. You know, emotions in this film, relationships, all of that. It's like so far gone and removed or fragmented, I guess. And I think that's a major theme of the movie, how intimacy itself is alien. You know, a lot of things are yeah. So I guess I don't know. It's a movie with certainly a lot of ideas. Denis Villeneuve, who I'm not always a fan of, by the way. I did not like Sicario. I did not see Prisoners. I really appreciate Arrival. I might like that more than this.
When you talk about intimacy breaking down, do you remember the part where the prostitute says, "Oh, he doesn't like real girls"? And
Yes.
did that stick with you, that she was saying that and she's a replicant?
I can't say that it stuck with me until you just said it again. But yeah, I remember when you in the moment, yes, that was like, oh yeah. But
And
no, I don't
it's
think
almost, you know, the humans. I mean, the actual humans are minimal. You know, it's the replicant world that we're in now.
who is a human in this movie anyhow? I mean, in the end, were we watching any humans? I don't know that we were.
Only Deckard. Oops.
Oh,
I bet that, it's not even conclusive. This movie doesn't even make it conclusive.
Yeah, that's what makes it so brilliant. Is that question's still not answered.
what about what Deckard is?
Yeah, it's still not.
Well, I thought he was. He said, what they're doing to our kind.
Well, I mean, he said they were pursuing us, but the us could mean, or they were following us, or hunting us. I think, I mean, people were kind of like, well, he could mean replicants in general, but he could have just meant them as a couple.
I think that's what he meant.
I thought he used the phrase "our kind" at one point.
That was Batista. Batista said, "What's it like to fight your own kind?" At the beginning of the movie.
Oh boy, okay, maybe I'm misremembering this.
So, and the point's been made. There's completely different implications for having a replicant on replicant baby as there is for having a replicant on human baby.
Okay,
yeah,
that's complete. I mean, that's just a whole an other can of worms. That's a lot.
Indeed.
What would you say are the ramifications of either?
How the hell did you impregnate a robot? Okay, so
robots. They're like original clones. They're like real.
So Rachel was not only special enough to live a long time. Rachel was also special enough to somehow to have like we've not only established that Rachel is special enough to live a long time, but she also can have children. She can bear children, and this was, I guess it was just the Rachel model, and then all the information about how that was done was lost in the blackout.
Well, Wallace implies that Deckard he did create the Rachel model specifically to seduce Deckard or someone like Deckard. See, that's once again, is Deckard a replicant or not?
So I mean, then it would just so they get seduced. It's just programming on programming at that point if they're both replicants. If Deckard is a human, then this baby is presumably kind of almost like a hybrid. Yeah, like a hybrid, like a which is, I mean, different implications. That replicants on replicants having children, they don't need humans anymore. We're done. We're finished. They're stronger than us. They're they can create they can create their own kind. At that point, humanity's done. We can't win. But I would see more if this is a replicant on human baby, then I mean, that the implications of that are that
that's more hope for coexistence.
Yeah, I would think so. But because does it have to be human against replicant? I mean, because I think isn't the whole point that replicants are people too, in a sense, that the whole practice of running around retiring these replicants is inhumane. Isn't that the kind of central underlying?
Well, that and what defines being human.
Yeah.
Right, and because clearly these are thinking, feeling beings. Mm-hmm. Do they have souls or whatever? But they're thinking, feeling beings, and so to just run around and say, okay, you're too strong, and you're gonna, we don't like to have you in the world, so you need to be retired. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't know. I always took that to be a pretty cut and dried stance, morally, that the movie is operating on. Am I wrong?
No, but a whole other can of worms was opened up by this film, by the premise of this film, as far as the nature of what is human, in addition to what was already established in the first film.
So yeah, in the first film you had a can of worms, and here you have another can of worms. So what you have now are two cans of worms. And they're both open.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Completely different worms.
But not as different as you might think.
Yes.
Yeah. This is great. Okay. I don't know what to do anymore.
Go see the movie again.
Yeah.
Yeah, go see the movie again. All right. So let's why don't we, as they say on TV, leave it there. Is everyone okay with that? Do we have any more?
I think we're done.
All right.
I think we're done.
I think we've solved all the mysteries that we're going to solve.
Yeah, we've solved Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then we'll reconvene in 35 years and talk about Blade Runner. Solving the mysteries of Blade Runner 2049. No.
I'll wear my ugly T-shirt.
Yeah. No, really. In all seriousness, it's been fabulous to have you two here.
It's your ugly T-shirt from the future.
Yes, future ugly.
I don't know where I got my cotton fibers, but okay.
Right. Well, hey. Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks,
Jim. You're welcome. This has been a lot of fun. So this is ZekeTalk, everybody. So if you enjoyed this, we appreciate you letting us know, and subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. This is the ZekeFilm channel, and you can get access to all our old shows. The way this show works, every week it's a different topic. We're not talking about Blade Runner all the time. It's a different topic. So next week it could be something entirely different, and most likely will be, and I don't know what that's going to be yet. Mike, do you know what it's going to be yet?
I do, but I'm not telling.
Oh, doggone it. Well, come back, everybody, and check that out. And don't forget about our website, ZekeFilm.org, where we will have reviews. We've got, my reviews of both the original and the new Blade Runner film. And also, we've got reviews today by others of the movie Happy Death Day. We've got the Take Every Wave, the surfing documentary that's supposed to be very good. New Jackie Chan movie, The Foreigner, that's going to be reviewed. So go to the site and check that out. We appreciate it. And thank you for being with us here. And go see Blade Runner.
Again.
Again?
If you haven't seen it for the first time.
It's a must-see. It really is. The new one is a must-see, theatrically. So
definitely.
Have a good night, and we will see you next time.
Happy trails.
All right.
Bye.